Hey, welcome back to the Weekend Warrior Woodworking channel. I'm Dave, and as I said earlier, today's video is going to be about wood. So why am I doing a video about wood? Well, although wood prices have come down, we all know we went through a particular period where wood prices were through the roof. So I want to tell you a little bit about where I get my wood, why I get it where I get it, and how that developed. So one thing is probably good to disclose. I've probably been a fine woodworker. We'll call this fine woodworking since April of 2020. And I had to make a couple of projects because why are we woodworkers in the first place? Because we don't want to pay some of the high prices it takes to make some furniture that we want for our homes. We like to make gifts for our friends and relatives. So we need, one of the most important things is wood. So where was I initially getting my wood? Well, I would go to a big box store, generally Home Depot. And anybody who has tried to get wood for a project from Home Depot knows you go to one of their big bins and you spend 15, 20, sometimes 30 minutes going through all the wood that they have in their bins, trying to find something that's straight and that you can use. So that is very frustrating. And it's also non-dimensional lumber, right? So when you go and buy, let's say you're going to buy a 1 by 12 by 8, it's going to be less than an inch thick. It's going to be about 11 and 3.5 inches wide. And if you're lucky, it's going to be 8 feet long. So I wasn't very satisfied with that. Plus, the prices are crazy. So I started looking on Facebook Marketplace about areas around me that I might be able to get wood. And what I ran into were tons of people who were selling dimensional lumber. So for those of us who are new to the game like me, what's dimensional lumber? Well, if I want to get a 1 by 12 by 8, it's an inch thick. It's 12 inches wide. And I found where I get my wood, generally it's maybe 8 feet 3 inches, 8 feet 4 inches long. So one, you're getting the size that you want to get and that you can cut down. Two, it's generally so much cheaper. And it's even cheaper in the areas where you buy wood. So you look around, go to different people. When I was first buying my wood, I went to a guy, a great guy, who was selling a 1 by 12 by 8 for, I would say, $12. And I thought that was a pretty good price. Started looking around, I found another guy who was selling a 1 by 12 by 8 for $6. Now I had to travel an extra 7 minutes to get to him, and it was kind of a more windy road drive, but I thought that was great. So now this is where I buy my wood. It probably takes me about 35 minutes to get there. The guy's great. I call him up, I say, here's what I want. He'll cut it for me. Okay, so the other thing you have to worry about with this wood is it's green. So what do? I generally store it somewhere and I keep it for a few months. And generally, if it's white pine or something like that, it dries out really quick. If it's hardwood, I could keep it for a year down in my basement where I have a dehumidifier. It dries out really well. So something you might want to consider. If you like going to the big box stores, do it. If you can find someone around you that carries some dimensional lumber that they cut themselves and you're willing to spend a little time keeping it, letting it dry out, depending on the type of wood it is, it can be well worth your while. So I'm going to show you some examples of what I use and what I have. And of course, I got to put my gloves on because it's rough cut lumber, right? So I use a number of different pieces for different things. So let's talk first about the wood I use the most, and that's the white pine. So here's a piece right here that I have cut down. This was a 2 by 12 by 8 foot piece. As you can see, there's not as much remaining because I have used it for a number of projects. And generally, my dimensional lumber like this does not get touched by power tools. So out of this piece, I made a couple of stools, milking stools for people who wanted to buy them. But I got my saws over there. I just picked up a new draw knife at a flea market. I got some molding planes, all hand tools, but I make my stools and stuff out of that. It's really easy to use. And this particular piece, he sold me a 2 by 12 by 8 for $12. So I can make a milking stool for like about $3.50 worth of wood. I mean, you gotta use your glue, you're using your tools, your time, but you can make some good things really cheap. And what do I use these type of softwoods for? Well, it's all depending on what you want to make. So my wife and I like to sit out on our rockers on the porch in the morning, have our coffee. We have a couple of rockers out there. So we needed a little table to go between that, right? So I was looking through Wayfair and stuff online, and I'm like, wait a minute, 119, 120 bucks for a little table to go between our rockers? So no, get yourself some dimensional lumber. I got some white pine and I made this. So this table right here that I made out of the white pine, the material for that probably cost me $3.50. And you know, I use my pneumatic nail gun to nail it in, and some glue. So you gotta add that cost in the price, but nice table, works for us. It's lightweight, made out of the white pine, but you know what? For probably the less than $10 it cost me to make that, that's perfectly fine. We needed some, my wife wanted some end tables for the love seat that we like to sit at when we watch TV. This right here I made out of that. So that again is the white pine dimensional. That probably cost me, I would say out of the wood, probably cost me like $15 to make, aside from the time. And that's usually the kind of things I make when I'm making stuff out of the softwoods. If you look over here, I got another project that's going on. Obviously needs another coat of paint, and I gotta affix the doors, but it's a nice little shelf with a drawer. So all of these projects you can make out of this dimensional lumber that you get from someone who's in the business of cutting and providing lumber to people is so much cheaper, and it works really well. You just have to be willing to put the work in to dimensioning the lumber. So like I said, I do it by hand. So when it's something like this, you know, I get out the hand planes. I take it down to the dimensions I want, use the saws to cut the pieces I want, and it's very satisfying. And in my particular business and what I like to do, I will use hand tools over power tools any day. And don't get me wrong, you know I love my Laguna Fusion F2. And I've raved about that, and I'm gonna do an update about that. You also know that I got the Bandsaw, love that too. But if I can use the hand tools, I would. So, aside from the white pine, what else do I use? Hardwoods, right? So, I go anywhere from this, get yourself a log, you can find some hardwood, some red oak, split them down, and that's where the bandsaw comes in, right? I'll use a bandsaw for that, to cut those down. Black walnut, I use black walnut, rough cut black walnut. You get that, dimension that down, cut it into what you want. If you follow me over here, white oak. This one has been, I would say, I've done a little dimensioning of it. I used a hand saw to cut off the bark and stuff apart. And then you have over here, I have a piece of maple that I'm going to use to make the maple and the white oak, and the black walnut I'm going to use to make a couple of cutting boards. But what else do I do with them? Well, I make little boxes. This is just a little example of one I kept for myself. I didn't even put a lid on, but I can use it, you know, just to store some stuff in. Recently, I made my niece what I called a trinket box for her birthday. So, having said that, I gotta give her a little shout out. Hola, mi sobrina, soy yo, su tío Dave. Estoy viniendo de mi garaje en Isla Meadow, Massachusetts. Su tía y yo están tan emocionados de verte y su hermana en Colorado en aproximadamente 2 semanas. Okay, so another thing you can use the hardwoods for, and this is why I got primarily the bandsaw. This right here, nice piece of red oak, but you can see I've cut it very thin with my bandsaw, the Laguna bandsaw, which has a 12-inch resaw capacity. You can take this and I can put it on one of my projects that is using the solid white pine, make it look like it's made out of oak. So there's a lot of reasons to get your wood from someone around that sells rough cut lumber. It's the way I go now. They have everything I want. I haven't run into someone who sells the rough cut lumber who hasn't been absolutely accommodating and very nice and gave me a great price. And actually every time I've gone, it helped me load my truck up with it. And the wood, I would say in quality, I haven't had any that have bowed up on me. I haven't had any that have been unusual. And anybody who's gone to the big box stores knows when you go to Home Depot, sometimes you get it home, looks like a banana. That hasn't happened to me. You know, frankly, I keep it out in my garage or in my basement where I have a dehumidifier, but I keep it nice, I keep it spaced, I let it air dry, and I haven't had any problems. So, short video on one of the things nearest and dearest to me, wood, and something that's really important to any woodworker. So, what do I want you to do? If you like the videos, subscribe and hit the notification bells. Because what's coming up next is going to be my review of the Laguna bandsaw. And I'm going to put the piece of maple back so you can take a look at it. I have used it, as I told you, I have resawn some thin strips from the red oak. I've used it to cut some other pieces of white oak and the black walnut. I've put it through its paces, and on the next video, I'm going to go through with you, tell you why I bought the Laguna 1412 and how it's performed so far. So again, I'm Dave. Thanks for turning into the Weekend Warrior Woodworking channel. I'll see you next time.